Hello, Miss Larrabee here. This week we're going to talk about space, specifically about arranging space in this week's art lesson. We're going to focus on positive and negative space. And before I get into all of that, let me tell you just a little bit about the supplies that you'll need. You need glue, scissors, and 2 sheets of paper. The paper should be different colors, so if you have construction paper, that's great. Choose 2 different colors. Today I'm going to be using the inside of a cereal box. I'm using the inside blank cardboard and a piece of white copy paper. Just as long as your 2 pieces contrast, so they need to not be the same color. You could also use wrapping paper. Could use some pieces of a magazine on the back of the cardboard, like from a box of some kind. That would work too. You could, if you have 2 pieces of white paper, you could color one, and that way you have some contrast between the 2, because we're going to need that for today's artwork. Here's an example of what we're going to be doing, just a little sneak peek. Here's another example, a little more involved. But let's start by talking about space and what I mean by positive and negative space. The positive space in artwork is the main object of your artwork. So in my artwork here, I have a triangle. That is my main object of my artwork. And the positive space is the inside of the triangle. The negative space is everything around the triangle. So positive space, negative space. If I cut this and remove it, you can still see the triangle, right? The reason is that positive and negative space share the same lines. So when I remove this, the negative space actually helps me see the triangle. And the reason that this is a neat concept is because it helps us when we're looking at objects to see them a little more clearly and maybe in a different way. Here's another example of that. This is called Rubens' vase. It's a piece of artwork, a painting, and it's a yellow vase, right? The positive space is the yellow vase, and the negative space is all the white background that's around it. If we were to remove the yellow vase and focus on the negative space, we would have something like this picture. You can still see the exact shape of the vase, but now it has been removed, and all you can see is the outline where the positive and the negative space meet. And what's really interesting about this is that you actually changes your perspective about what the picture is about. Can you see the profile of a man on both sides? It's like they're looking at each other, their noses are pointed towards each other. And that is only by changing the focus of the picture from the positive space to the negative space. The reason that this is so helpful is in artwork, when you're drawing, sometimes it's good to look at the negative space versus the positive. Here's an example of what that might look like. Here's a picture of a stool like the ones we have in our classroom. And if I were to say, please draw a stool today, you might start at the top and draw the top and then draw the legs. You would be drawing the positive space. Maybe you would add this detail for me. But if you wanted to approach this by drawing the negative space, you would draw the top, and then you would draw the inside between the legs. And you know, when I first was introduced to this concept when I was in school, I thought, why would I do that? Why would I draw the negative space? But here's the really cool part about this. You might draw the stool and you might draw the positive space, and something might look not quite right about it. You could tell that something was off, but sometimes it's hard to see what that thing is. And if you just switch your brain to look at it a little differently, it might help it show up. So if I were to draw this and it were a little off, I could go back and I could look at the negative space. I could compare what I'm seeing to what I'm drawing. And I would think, is my negative space the same? And a lot of times that will help you find where your picture is off. Another great application to this is to draw more quickly. So if you're drawing something that's very detailed, sometimes our brains want to simplify it, or something that we're so used to seeing that we don't see all the details in. If we work on seeing the negative space first, we can draw more quickly and more accurately what's there, because our brain isn't simplifying it for us. So just a little thing that's going to help with your drawing. Today we're going to use it just to have fun. Positive and negative space is very popular right now. We see it in home goods, things that people are using to decorate their areas with, have a lot of positive and negative space. All right, so here we go. I'm starting, this is my cardboard. This is just the back of my cereal box. And I'm going to start with a piece of copy paper. The thing that we need, is to cut a square from this paper. So you have your background, mine is cardboard, and my foreground is going to be made from the paper, but I need it in a square. If you have a cutting board at home, or if you want to use a ruler and draw out a square, you need to draw about 4 inches on each side. That's about the size that we're looking for a regular sheet of paper. But if you don't want to do that, I'm going to show you a little trick here. Take the corner of your paper and fold it over. You want to make sure that it lines up very nicely with the side of your paper. The great people who make this paper for us make it with very straight lines so that we can use those edges like we would a ruler. So see how I have a line right here now? I'm going to cut this off. I apologize now. Sometimes the microphone picks up cutting more than it does a voice, and so if the cutting's very loud, I apologize. All right, so now I have a square when I open it up. Now this square is a little bit too big for my paper, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fold it over, and I'm going to fold it again. And now I have made another square. It is 1/4 the size of my original square, so when I cut it, I will have 4 separate pieces. I'm only going to need 1 of the 4. Okay, so I'm going to just set this aside. I can open this up. Cut it again, and now I have 1 small square. All right, it's about 1/4 of the size of my larger paper too, just for reference, about 4 inches on each side. All right, so here we go, here we begin. I'm going to use a pencil to trace some shapes just so you can see what I'm talking about. You're welcome to freeform, you don't have to draw first, but on each side of this shape, we're going to draw a shape. Here's what I mean by that. I'm going to draw on the bottom a geometric shape. That just means that it has straight lines, something you would use a ruler for maybe, something that you would find in geometry. But organic shape is something that uses curved lines and is more like things that are found in nature. So geometric shape, here's an organic shape. It's up to you what kind you use. I'm going to add, it would be really neat if I had a way to trace this, a curved line, but there we go. And then maybe right here I'm going to add just a true semicircle. All right, so now that I have my shapes, I'm going to carefully cut them out. You're going to cut them on the line as best you can. You can always go back and erase these lines when you're all finished. If you freeformed, you don't have to worry about that. That just means you didn't draw anything. You just picked up your scissors and you just started cutting. Notice as I'm cutting that I'm moving my paper, not my scissors. My scissors, got a little off there. My scissors stay straight up and down every time. You want to save all these little pieces that you're cutting off. We're going to use those. All right, one last one. Oh, I saved the biggest one for last. As you're cutting, notice the paper turns, not the scissors. You're going to need your glue. And we're going to kind of fit this together like a puzzle when we're all done. All right, so I have it all cut out. I'm going to keep those pieces. All right, I'm going to flip this over so I can't see my pencil's lines on it. Kind of put it like it was a square, even though we've cut most of the square edges off. And I'm going to glue this down. Okay, remember, dot, dot, not a lot. You don't need a lot of glue, but you do want it to lay flat to make it look really neat. Excuse me. I like to make little dots, but I'm kind of banging on my table as I do it. Remember to go around the outside edge of your shape so that it will lay flat when you lay it down. You don't want to put all the glue in the middle. You want it on the edges. Okay, so let's see if we can flip this over. There we go. You'll have to kind of square it back up again, make it even. And if you remember, make sure you're on a surface that's washable or put a piece of paper under it. You can massage the back. We've done this in class on some different projects. just to help it lay a little more flat. But it's going to get glue on your table, so make sure you protect your table first. Okay, so now that I have it glued down and I have it flat, there's extra glue, which is fine. It's going to dry. You're going to piece this back together like a puzzle. So this fits here, and this fits here. My mountains go here, and my organic shape goes here. All right, and then we're just going to invert them or flip them over. So we're taking the positive space and we're highlighting the negative space. And it's kind of neat to see what it comes up with. Sometimes it looks way different when you flip it over, when you see the two spaces together. There we go. And then I would glue these pieces down as well. If you want to take it one step further, you can go back with these pieces and you could make a totally different shape inside here. Let's see if I can make a curve. Oops, sorry. A curve. So I would still keep this piece here to mirror what I have, but then I would take this piece and I would flip it back this way. That changed the look of that completely, didn't it? And maybe over here, since that was rounded, I'm going to try something more squared. So I could lay this here and then flip this back to this side. You can start to add layers to your project this way. Let's do one more together. What if I cut? You could cut the same shape or you could cut something totally different. So lay this back down. If you were to get confused at this point of where it goes, just remember, line it up like a puzzle and then flip it back over again. And then I have the center part. It was like this. I'm going to flip it back this way. Oh, and just adding that little bit of detail changes the whole picture, right? So you could also, I think, I really enjoy doing this too. Since you have more squares, if you cut them out like me, you probably have 3 more squares left. You could also cut this in half, and you could do the same thing with a triangle. So here would be what I meant by freeforming. I would just cut into my paper however I wanted to. Let's see, I'll use my table here. And start adding shapes like this and making it a triangle instead of a square. You could do it with pretty much any shape. The geometric shapes, the triangles, squares, circles, those tend to work a little better with this, give you a little different edge. You could go bigger as well. If you did a triangle, you could fit more of it on your paper than the square. This is one where I cut 1, 2 into it 3 times. So I just kept reversing this side, and then I would cut from it and put it on this side. And it just makes a little bit more of a detailed, I guess, picture. This one was fun. Now, can you tell I enjoyed this one? I hope you guys do too. You could do several of these and then choose which one you want to glue down. And the first one really just kind of gets your brain thinking that way. And then the second, third, fourth one, you can get really creative and try something new with it. This one I tried adding this leaf shape in. It was a little harder to get it straight when I wanted to invert it on this side, but it was fun. All right, so I hope that that has just given you some ideas. I can't wait to see what you create with your positive and negative space and ways that you might be able to apply that as you're drawing as well. I look forward to seeing your pictures. Remember, you can share them with me through email or with your homeroom teacher. And I look forward to seeing what you create.